Well, the new year is underway and reality may be hitting you. The possibility might be entering your mind that you might not be able to stick to your ambitious New Year's resolution. Or maybe you've already failed and you're ready to throw in the towel just 1 week in. Christians in the early church were people whose whole lives were totally new. They didn't have centuries of church tradition to look to for guidance. They were like living, breathing New Year's resolutions. And we know how hard it can be to keep just one, but we also know that many of these early believers remained faithful because we see the fruit of Christ's faithfulness through them in the history of his church. So how did they do it? How did they not fall away in a culture that was not merely ambivalent, but openly hostile to the commitments they had made? Beginning in verse 14 of Acts, Peter delivered one of the greatest sermons ever preached by a human, and he did it standing on the rock of God's word. But how did Peter find the courage to speak with such confidence? If we go back to the night that Peter sat with Christ at the Passover table and listened to Jesus' heartfelt prayer for his disciples, we learn one of the mechanisms that God ordained to be a source of strength for new and old Christians alike. Jesus prayed in John 17:11, "And I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, keep them in your name, which you have given me, that they may be one, even as we are one." And then in verse 20, he said, "I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one." When Peter stood up to address that crowd, it says that Peter, taking his stand with the 11, raised his voice. When Peter failed and denied Christ, he was alone. One-on-one with a serving girl, he buckled. But on the day of Pentecost, facing thousands, he took his stand with the 11. Peter learned that lesson the hard way, and I think that he made sure every new believer learned it too. That's one reason that brand new Christians in a hostile world could remain faithful. They were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship. There is one thing that strong Christians have in common. They're surrounded by other strong Christians. And when someone falls away, it may be that they fall into sin and then leave the fellowship, or that they leave the fellowship and then fall into sin. But either way, fellowship is broken. Christian, Christ prayed that you would have communion with other believers. This year, add this resolution to your list, that no matter what happens with your other resolutions, you would not let your sin break the unity that you have with your local fellowship. And I believe this will help you realize more success with your other resolutions as well. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near.